So now that I'm done talking about a show about color-coded ninjas, it's time to talk about a movie about color-coded ninja. And no, I'm not referring to the 2017 Power Rangers movie, though I will get to that eventually. Instead, I'm going to be talking about the theatrical film based on my favorite LEGO property, the LEGO NinjaGo movie. Just a heads up, this review is going to be a little different than my usual brand of videos. Rather than go through the movie scene by scene before giving my final thoughts, instead I'm going to do a full analysis of this movie, talking about its production, its placement in the LEGO trilogy, and its effect on the NinjaGo fandom as a whole. I'm doing this because I think the elements surrounding this movie are just as interesting as the movie itself, if not more so, and given that the movie had such an impact on the series itself, I wanted to give my response to certain things in something a little bit more constructive than a quick post on Twitter. This does mean this review will contain spoilers of both this movie and the Masters of Spinjitzu TV series, so if you haven't seen either and you really want to, I recommend that you check those out before watching this. For those of you still here, let's jump up, kick back, whip around, and spin as we look at the third movie in the LEGO Cinematic Universe, the LEGO NinjaGo movie. It's common knowledge now that this movie was greenlit after the second trailer to the LEGO movie got a positive response, and I, like many other fans of the show, was very excited. My excitement doubled when I heard that the talented Hageman brothers would be working on the movie as part of the writing team, similar to how they started on the show, and they even have a writing credit on the LEGO movie. I remember thinking, this is great. People who actually worked on the show are gonna work on this movie. Finally, people will see the greatness of this show on the big screen. And then the plot synopsis came out, which I will now read to you since it's no longer on IMDb. NinjaGo is the story of 6 young ninja tasked with defending their island home called NinjaGo. By night, they're gifted warriors using their skills and awesome fleet of vehicles to fight villains and monsters. By day, they're ordinary teens struggling against their greatest enemy, high school. This raised a red flag for me because it sounded a little bit like...
After 10,000 years, I'm free! It's time to conquer Earth!
Alpha, read us escape. Recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes.
And I know what you're thinking. I'm a huge Power Rangers fan, so this kind of stuff should appeal to me, right? But this plot synopsis is so different from what the show actually is that it was my first indication that this movie wasn't going to be in continuity with the show. Despite having similar elements, the NinjaGo series has a very different structure from Power Rangers. Rather than have formulaic Monsters of the Week episodes, NinjaGo has episodes that serve season-long arcs, where the main villains and storylines change every year, while the main cast develops over each adventure. Granted, the best Power Ranger seasons are ones that have very involved plots and great character development, but this sounded more like the plot to the most generic Power Ranger series. My worries were further compounded when the cast and character images were released, which is when the show's fan base started to cry foul. Which kinda makes sense. Any big screen adaptation of currently running TV shows usually has the same production team and cast that worked on that show, with things like the Rugrats trilogy, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, heck, even the My Little Pony movie, which also came out last year, still kept the same cast. Though ironically, Vincent Tong, who voiced characters in NinjaGo and My Little Pony, wasn't even asked to be in that movie. In fact, if you count Death Note, 2017 was an odd year for movies based on TV shows that Vincent Tong was prominently in. Still, many people like myself were willing to give the film the benefit of a doubt, since the Hagemans' names were still attached, and the casting change was somewhat understandable since it allowed the movie to appeal to a mass audience. Plus, the LEGO franchise had already set a precedent for having big name talent in their movies, so I can understand wanting consistency there. Then the trailer dropped, and while I was still excited for the movie, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't going to be what I was expecting at all when the movie was first announced. Despite that, I had yet to see anyone online denounce the movie before it came out, meaning that, like me, the fanbase was willing to see the movie with an open mind. The results? Well... At the time of this film's release, the LEGO franchise was already in full swing. The LEGO Movie was the surprise hit of 2014 that many people said got snubbed at the Oscars that year, and the LEGO Batman movie was a great follow-up that was both a love letter and a deconstruction of the Caped Crusader as a character. So it's safe to say that the LEGO NinjaGo movie had a lot to live up to, not just for fans of the show, but also for the movie-going public. The reaction to the film, however, was very mixed, and not just from NinjaGo fans. A lot of people felt that while the movie was okay, it was nowhere near the quality of the other movies in the LEGOverse, and in fact fact earned a lot less money at the box office compared to the others in the trilogy, though it still made its money back. But then the question becomes why? I mean, this certainly looks like the Lego movie. There's live action scenes, a real world object that has great power, and as mentioned, a big name cast that has a lot of jokes thrown in. So why wasn't this movie able to appeal to the general public like the others? Well, despite looking like the Lego movie, the Lego NinjaGo movie is actually a very different type of film that doesn't execute elements that worked in the Lego movie all that well. The Lego movies at their core have always been parodies. The Lego Batman movie was a parody of Batman's history in comics and film, and the Lego movie is a parody of Chosen One narratives like The Matrix. The Lego NinjaGo movie, however, is not a parody, or at least if it is, it's a very poorly done one. With the way the credits are framed at the beginning of the movie, you would almost think that this was going to be a parody of old-style kung fu movies, but it doesn't do much with that outside of making a few jokes here and there. Of course, when I saw this movie, I thought it was going to be a parody of the TV show, but it doesn't really play that way either because both the plot and characters don't support it. Instead of the ninja going on a big adventure while poking fun at the character dynamics and structure of past seasons, here we have a basic adventure story where the ninja are trying to unlock their elemental powers. Though, to this film's credit, I can see this kind of story as its own season of the show, or at least that's what I thought up until I realized that this was using the plot to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie that was released in 1995. Seriously, the mentor almost dies, the ninja have to travel through a dangerous forest landscape in search of great power, and the leader is the one who has the most screen time out of the whole team. Sure, this movie is more thematically deep by comparison, but it is odd that the first NinjaGo movie is essentially ripping off the first Power Rangers movie, though at least that film kept the same cast. This leads me to the topic of the characters themselves, who are portrayed rather oddly. It's not that they're totally different from what was on the small screen. In fact, some of these people are characterized like they were on the show, but others will be more of a parody of their television counterparts. Kai, Jay, and Lloyd are the closest to acting like the people they're based on, even though Kai doesn't get that many moments to shine, and Jay is being played without his quick wit and fast learning nature. Zane and Master Wu, on the other hand, are definitely more of a parody here, with Zane being an obvious robot who's trying to convince everyone he's a regular teenager, and Master Wu comes off less as a mentor in this version and more like a guy who just gave the team cool mechs instead of teaching them ninjutsu or even how to work their powers. And then there's Cole and Nia, who pretty much act like completely new characters. Cole, for whatever reason, likes music as his main character trait, though it doesn't really come up that often, and Nia is just kinda there, with her only notable character trait being that she's a girl. I'm sure that these characters could have been more defined had we actually spent time with them, but most of the film's runtime is devoted to Lloyd since he's the main character. Don't get me wrong, Dave Franco does a great job playing Lloyd, who, like on TV, has to deal with the fact that his father's an evil supervillain, and his back and forth with Justin Theroux's Garmadon leads to some of the film's best moments. But because the movie's so Lloyd-focused, the rest of the ninja are relegated to the background, where they don't do that much to add to the film as a whole. This boggles my mind because the Lego movies, on top of being parodies, are also great ensemble pieces with each side character getting the chance to stand out, so why can't NinjaGo, who had such a strong ensemble on TV, translate that to the big screen? After all, the cast of the movie talked about how much fun they had recording before the film came out, so why isn't any of that fun interplay in the final product? On top of that, most of the movie's biggest comedic moments go on for way too long, so at the end of the day, we have a movie that's not nearly as funny as the other Lego films, and tells a story that's very been there done that. All of that said, this movie is at its best whenever it focuses on the dynamic between Lloyd and Garmadon, and the third act is where any of this starts to feel like the TV show. Garmadon, by the way, exists in this weird middle ground where he's played like a parody through 75% of the movie, but after he spends time bonding with his son, he suddenly has the character conflict that made Garmadon such an interesting character to begin with. And I also appreciate the film for giving Lloyd more of a concrete elemental power, even though it's metaphorical. At any rate, I'm glad I saw this movie. While it certainly isn't as good as the other films that came before it, I could still appreciate this film for what it is, and it's good that it was at least a moderate success. It's not really what I wanted from the ninja's first foray into cinemas, but it was still entertaining, and at the very least I could enjoy the team's further adventures on the small screen without any issues. Right? Right? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the image that nearly destroyed the entire NinjaGo franchise. Okay, that's a bit of an over-exaggeration, but seriously, when this trailer was first released a few months ago, the NinjaGo fanbase lost their freaking minds. And to be honest, I can see why. As I've just finished illustrating, the Lego NinjaGo movie is not a good representation of the show, so I'm sure a lot of people saw this image and thought the series was going to now take place within the continuity of the movie, throwing away years of character development and goodwill that the show had built up at this point. There were even fans who told Brent Miller, the voice of Zane, Zane that he was going to be replaced because he didn't sound like Zane did in the movie. Just for transparency's sake, I was not part of this group of fans that was constantly harassing the writers and making petitions to get the Ninja back to their original designs. But I am nonetheless baffled that the production team of NinjaGo were so surprised that this was the reaction they got from fans. After all, the one thing that every NinjaGo fan agreed on before the movie came out was that the new designs of the characters looked so weird, so what made them think that we weren't going to have a similar reaction to this trailer? Furthermore, if the goal of the movie was to bring in new fans for the series, then why would you make a movie that was so different from what the show was in the first place? I know that the Hagemans said that they always like to shake things up so that the show doesn't get stale, but this doesn't sound like a choice that was made so that the show could now tell deeper stories. This sounds like a corporate decision to cash in on the movie's success. I think I finally understand how Teen Titans fans felt after the release of Teen Titans Go. But maybe I am overreacting here. After all, the show staff all seem to be in agreement that Season 8 will be the best season in NinjaGo to date, and enough time has passed for people to get used to how the ninja are going to look from now on. While I ultimately feel that making the NinjaGo movie more like a Lego film was a mistake because of how much fan backlash it caused, it is my sincerest hope that the show can still maintain its level of quality and that the changes are only cosmetic. Good luck to you, NinjaGo, and happy 7th anniversary. I'm Nick, aka IronBat1993, reminding you to Ninja Go!